you should be able to type in your questions, and next to the question, please put your name and designation as well as a place, so that we can identify you, we can name you. Our chairperson will be asking questions on behalf of you, so we will know who you are and things. So along with that, you have a chat box where you can continue your chat comments and everything. Just keep going whenever you like. You want to add any comments, please do put your comments. That's fine. Okay, so once again, welcome you all. Over to Dr. Mahesh. So he takes over and introduces Dr. Prasad Rao, our chairperson for today's session. Over to you, Mahesh. Dr. Mahesh.
Thank you, Vijay. Good evening, everybody. And I would like to thank Dr. Prasad Rao for agreeing to chair this very important session for us. Dr. Prasad Rao has held various positions. Dr. Prasad Rao right now is the Director of Schizophrenia and Psychopharmacology Division at Asha Hospital. He is also the President of Indian Association of Private Psychiatry. He has held numerous positions at IPS, be it the President, be it also with the Indian Journal of Psychiatry, be it National CME of IPS. He's also been the President of Indian Association of Biological Psychiatry from 18 to 20. And he's been the President for Society of Bipolar Disorders of India. He's also the President-elect for Indian Association of Geriatric Mental Health. And he's also been the past treasurer of Indian Association of Private Psychiatry, Vice President of Indian Association of Private Psychiatry. And he's also finished all his tenures at the zonal level and at the state levels. He has numerous designations. He has a lot of interest on spirituality, yoga, and mental health related issues. Today, he is actually rightly going to chair the session, a very important session for us. We're very happy to have you, sir. Welcome, Dr. Prasad Rao.
Thank you, Mahesh Gaurav, for those wonderful words. I don't think I deserve all those them, but I would like to add just one more for that. In the year 2021, in December 1st to 4th, I am organizing the World Psychiatric Association Spirituality and Religion International Congress in Hyderabad. I would request all of you and everyone to be ready, along with P. Kishan, who is my very younger brother and a very good friend of mine. I can call him that I am the mentor of him for some time, if he would agree. So today, as I saw the theme, then I was just Googling to find out both regarding P. Kishan and Shivaram Varamballi. In Varamballi, there was one more professor of Varamballi in Bangalore, but then my focus was on Shivaram. And I was very fascinated, of course. I will also like to add that, and I'll take credit for that, during my two presentations, one in the American Psychiatric Association on the resilience of psychiatry, with the, of course, permission of Dr. Gangadhar, I did use some of the data which Shivaram presented at that for the published papers in the yoga, in the BDNF, in the schizophrenia. So I knew from close to my heart what Shivaram is working over the last 5-6 years. Shivaram had his undergraduation from Mysore Medical College, and then MD, of course, from NIMHANS, our alma mater. And after he entered, over the period of time, he has at least, according to the CV, I received about 116 published papers in mostly international journals, peer-reviewed. And his fascination towards yoga, the neuroplasticity and neurogenesis is something which probably is, I would say, comes rightly from his bottom of his heart. He has had numerous international awards, which includes Indo-Canadian Award in 2016, Vimala Varmani Award by the National Academy of our government, Dean's Award for excellent teaching in Australia, and of course, S.S. Jairam. Shivaram, you and me, one
Yes.
Jairam, I won twice. Just joking, just kidding. But the most important thing is, he is the first youngest professor of integrated medicine in NIMHANS, which, as we know, it is a conglomerate and a conjoinment of the other than the pure biological psychiatry. I think we are going to hear from. I just thought Ramakrishna, that is, most of you know Ramakrishna, our famous saint, has once told that the fabled musk deer actually searches for the beautiful scent which is the musk smell. Where is it coming from? Forgetting all the time that it is the musk deer itself which is emanating. I would say yoga is something like that. I would elaborate. Samadosha Samayagnesha Samadhatu Malakriyata Prasanna Atmiyendram Manam Swasti Bhi Dhyati Sushreta Samhita. This is from Sushreta Samhita, which actually summarizes quite well the yoga, I wouldn't call philosophy at all. I would say it is, and for me, yoga has always been part of my life. I would say, as a it's not just a treatment, but I think Shivaram Varambali has gone much beyond just talking about practice as a life. He tried to show the evidence of the positive evidence and probably yoga for mental health in varieties of disorders. And I'm really waiting for his first presentation. Without much ado, thank you, Shivaram, for this opportunity. I'm waiting for you. And I thank you for your work because when I presented the 10 slides there in APA New York in the Resilience Conference, and we quoted the evidence from the yoga, there were a lot of questions based on what are you doing there in India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm very much privileged to present when you are chairing, and of course, Dr. Kishan, who has been our collaborator and senior and very much interested in spirituality. As Dr. Prasad Rao said, yoga is not something that is separate from, biological or psychological. It almost mixes everything. And what I'm going to show today is that actually there is a very thin line or almost no line between biology and psychology when it comes to yoga. So everything is converted ultimately into biology. But more importantly, in this crisis situation, what we need to see is what do we mean by good mental health? Is it just the absence of mental disorder, or is it something more than that? No, when you ask people what do they want to their mental health to be, how do they want to feel, they quote terms like happiness, well-being, feeling satisfied, feeling positive, not COVID positive, but mentally positive. And many people who little bit think about it and then answer will say, I need to find meaning in my life and I need to achieve my full potential. Now, these terms are a little difficult to define, but they all make up what we call as good mental health. But as you all know, and very much in the case of COVID also, unless you are physically well, you can't be mentally well, and unless you are mentally well, you can't be physically well. So it's a very close interaction between these two parameters, and when one is disturbed, the other is definitely disturbed, as in the case of very much, in the case of diabetes and depression, very well demonstrated by many studies, including some from NIMHANS by Dr. Chaturvedi. Another example could be recovery after, myocardial infarction or stroke, where the depression, if it is there, it makes the person less likely to recover. And on the other hand, if the person is extremely positive, he or she is more likely to recover. I could give you an example of a recent, one of my relatives who is a very senior person, who is 87, who is a physician in Manipal Hospital. He was diagnosed as COVID positive. And being 87, people were worried, but he is a former army man and a physician. And he said, no, see, don't worry about this. I will be back to seeing patients in 2 weeks. And indeed he was. Nothing happened to him. I mean, it all depends on your mental state. So this is how do you keep your body and mind and brain trained? The most important thing is that the brain and the body both are excellent trainees. They respond very well to training, provided you know how to train them. You can take examples of B.K. Iyengar, as you all know. He was a very sickly child, very unhealthy as a child, and therefore he took up yoga and he became one of the ambassadors of yoga throughout the world. The second examples I always like to take is Abdul Kalam ji, who was a model for all of us, who was a teacher till the end. In fact, I think, if I am right, he passed away while giving a lecture to a student body somewhere in Northeast India. So the third example, coming from my own state and my city, Bangalore, is Rahul Dravid, who, in the midst of all the negativity in cricket, as you all know, it's a very tough sport at the highest level, and people try to bring you down. He retained his positivity, known as the nicest man. In fact, this biography says the nice guy who finished first. So these people have trained themselves to be positive. But how do you actually train the brain? So you have to understand a little bit of, brain functioning. How does brain work? Is it like a computer? It's not really. No computer has been able to achieve anywhere the flexibility of the human brain. It's simply because the brain can change itself, which no computer as yet can do. Maybe in the future, 50 years later, it might. But right now, the computer just follows a set algorithm. Artificial intelligence, of course, is going to change all this. But right now, the brain is one of the only organ which can actually change itself functionally, and as I will show, to some extent, even structurally. So we all, when we were MBBS, we were taught that brain can change the area, give its function to another area. So the circuit is what is more important, and this is one of the primary differences between the human brain and the computer. Now, this concept of neuroplasticity, which everybody talks about nowadays, back in 1949, he wrote this excellent book called as Organization of Behavior, which, he said, this is, the neurologists know this as Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together, wire together, and neurons that are out of sync lose their link. So this means that if you keep using a circuit again and again and again, it becomes stronger and stronger, and ultimately it becomes almost automatic. This is what happens in epilepsy, that there is a set of discharge of a neuron which becomes automatic, and therefore person has seizure. This is very easy to do. For example, we cycle or we swim. Once we do it, we will never forget. That is because the circuits are almost automatic from the beginning. Walking, for example, we learn and we never forget it. But semantic memory is not like that. We have to retrain it. And there are people who do it like, very easily. Shakuntala Devi, for example, has become famous recently because of the film again. Had trained her mind in such a way that any maths problem was not a problem for her. But this is the basis of our ability to rewire our brains and therefore our behaviors, moods, and thoughts. But how do you actually do it? The simple adage is practice makes perfect. And the pilots follow a rule called as the 10,000 hour rule, where they say that if you do something for 10,000 hours, then you are a master of that. So they count their flying hours, and always the pilots, experience is counted in terms of flying hours, because it almost becomes automatic for them. Even in a crisis, they will be able to do it without thinking. That's what we all aim to do. Maybe for many of us, like you watch Federer playing tennis, seems to come automatically. So that is what the level of practice is. And of course, we all know that very importantly, there are two kinds of memory. There is implicit, which I was talking about, which is cycling, swimming, and there is explicit, which is little less, automatic, and we have to train it. There is a very good book by Daniel Kahneman, who is a Nobel Prize winner in economics, called as Thinking Fast and Slow, in which he talks about two systems of the human brain and response, where the system one is a automatic response, which is good for crisis. We are falling, we put our hand out. It's a natural response. So just like that, even thinking, talking, there is a natural response, which may not always be correct. Whereas system 2 is a logical system, which is done after, action is done after a lot of thinking. Now, unfortunately, most of us use system 1 for almost everything. Somebody shouts at us, we immediately shout back, or we hit the person. This is system 1 which is working. very few of us can get the system 2 into action when we want it to. That is what yoga actually tries to do. And Dr. Prasad Rao was talking about neurogenesis. And again, when we were in MBBS, we were taught that the brain is not a very plastic organ, unlike, say, skin and other things. Once you have some damage in the brain, it's almost permanent. Now we know it is not true. In fact, neurogenesis has been demonstrated in the brain till the age of even 70. Where does it happen? Not everywhere, of course. Only in a couple of areas like the olfactory bulb and the hippocampus. But as we all know, hippocampus is the critical area for memory, and neurogenesis can actually happen till late age for humans. How do you actually promote this? These are some of the evidence-based practices which have been shown to promote neurogenesis and actually help in training the brain. Yoga is one of the primary ones. Even the famous psychologist who started the concept of positive psychology, who is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, has written in his book Flow that yoga is one of the most systematic methods to get into the flow state. He said the Western world has never come up with anything close to yoga. And he, coming from Hungary, coming to the US, and he has made that statement in his book Flow, which I would recommend all of you to read if you are interested in positive psychology. He was the father of positive. He's still alive. He's very senior now, but he's still alive. It's a wonderful book called Flow. The other things are intermittent fasting, which has been shown to improve neurogenesis. As we all know, you eat less, you live longer. It's one of the most replicated findings in medicine. Having novel experiences, something that we have never done before. Some people take up Sudoku, trekking, cycling at late age. It's a wonderful way to keep your brain from going into, dementia kind of state. Learning any new skill, it could be cooking, singing, whatever it is, and reading with emotional involvement. These are all techniques which have been shown to promote neurogenesis in these areas. Now, coming to yoga, which is the main topic for today. Of course, we all know that yoga is one of the Shat Darshanas in the traditional Indian philosophical system, and Patanjali is considered as the person who codified it, and therefore he is called as the father of yoga. But what is it really? Most people in the West tend to think that it is a physical exercise. In fact, we published a paper just for that from NIMHANS, comparing yoga and physical exercise, the International Review of Psychiatry in 2016, where we actually show that there is a vast difference between physical exercise and yoga. And actually, many of the physiological parameters are actually going in the opposite direction when you do yoga. So it is a lifestyle, it is not merely postures. But if you look at the definitions of yoga, the very interesting thing is that most of the texts of yoga talk about the mind and not the body. You can take Yoga Vasishta, which says Mana Prashamanopaya iti yogaha, or you can take the Bhagavad Gita, which says Samatvam Yoga Vichyate, or you can take Patanjali himself, who says Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is controlling the oscillations of the mind. The most apt for psychiatry is this definition, which is, if you go back to the previous slide, you can see in the NIMHANS logo, Professor M.V. Govindaswamy must have had this foresight. He has put in this, what we call as Samatvam Yoga Uchyate back. He was a noted Sanskrit scholar himself. So this comes from this chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya Siddhi Asiddhi Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Vichyate. So basically it is talking about being able to handle success and failure in a similar way and being in equilibrium. That itself is yoga. Those of you who know Rudyard Kipling's poem If, he talks about this thousands of years later and says, if you can treat success and failure both as imposters, then you are a man, my son. That is much later wisdom, probably derived from some of these. Although we all know yoga, most famous elements are asana and pranayama, Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga makes it very clear that these are just 2 steps and not entirely yoga. In fact, yama niyama, without going through those basic philosophical steps, it is not truly yoga. The first 5, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and pratyahara, are called as the Bahiranga Yoga, which is the yoga or the external yoga, which relate more to the life and the body. whereas the last three are called as the Antaranga Yoga, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi, which is more about the mind and attaining sort of union with the universal consciousness. This is what I was talking about. If you look at some of the physiological aspects, the effects of yoga and exercise are actually almost the opposite in many ways. This is because when we do exercise, we are not thinking what our body is doing, we are just doing it. Whereas yoga, mindfulness is the most important component of yoga. Without that, it is not truly yoga. This is a slide that I use in all my presentations. If people have seen my presentations before, there would be a repetition, but I put it to just to emphasize what we do and how we do are equally important. As you can see, the posture is very similar, but the effects next day morning are likely to exactly be the opposite. So this is something that demonstrates, Iyengar ji is demonstrating how to do yoga, and the other person, of course, has lost control of himself. Why is it relevant for mental health? Let me start with healthy people. Hopefully all of us are very healthy, but even then we know that with age, all of us lose brain tissue. Our brains become smaller with age. Even a normal person who is not a doctor can see the CT scan of a 20-year-old and a 90-year-old and make out whose brain is more dense and who has lost tissue. Surprisingly, it has been shown that people who do meditation and yoga actually don't lose as much brain tissue as people who do not do this. This is now a well-established evidence. And we, of course, did a very small study as a PhD in NIMHANS. Hari Prasad did a PhD in elderly living in old age homes in Bangalore. We taught them yoga for 6 months, exactly where they are in their old age home. And what we found is that memory significantly improved in the people who did yoga. Of course, other things, quality of life, sleep, many things improved. And these are some of the benefits that have been shown in healthy people. Depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms, these are not patients, these are healthy people. Quality of life improves, cortisol comes down, oxidative stress goes down, many neurophysiological parameters change, higher amplitude of evoked potentials in the EEG, and increases in cerebral gray matter in the MRI. The famous study by Sarah Lazar showed that long-term meditators actually had thicker areas of the cortex, in particular brain areas. Now let us come to, we are all psychiatrists, so let us look at yoga in our patients. If you look at the pooled data, this is one of the good papers which shows that from 10 studies, the pooled effect size was very much in favor of yoga. This is across all mental disorders. Of course, this is quite old now. This is 9-year-old paper. I'm yet to see something of this nature recently, so I'm just quoting this. But in depression, there is a good review by Kramer, who has almost written reviews on everything in yoga. He was doing his PhD in Germany, and he has written a lot of meta-analysis. In depression, as you can see in the chart here, you can see that overall the evidence is very much in favor of yoga for depression. This is a study which Professor Janki Ramaiah and Professor Gangadhar did at NIMHANS with this Art of Living Foundation. This was the first randomized controlled trial of yoga as a sole intervention in people with major depression, comparing it with imipramine and ECT. And what they were able to show is that ECT, of course, was definitely better, but imipramine and yoga were almost the same in terms of efficacy over a 3-month period. This was the first such study in the world, which was published in 2000 in the JAD. We repeated the study recently doing as a PhD. Of course, this was not randomized. This is a patient chosen arm. They could take only medicine, yoga plus medicine, or only yoga. And what we found again is that yoga was as good as medicine, if not better. Now let me come to the other major disorder that we treat, which is schizophrenia. This was the first study by Duraswamy, who did his MD thesis with Dr. Gangadhar, and we were able to show that particularly the negative syndrome improved quite significantly in people with yoga over 4-month period. I repeated this study as a funded study from the Ayush, and again we were able to show that negative syndrome particularly and social functioning improved. These two are the studies which have been quoted in the NICE guidelines in 2014. where they added yoga as a complementary treatment in schizophrenia for the first time, based on these two studies, which they called as high quality evidence. They both are from NIMHANS. One was, of course, a MD, and one was a funded study. Now, it's very interesting to see how this happens. Okay, yoga helps our patients, but how does it actually happen? This is what I said about, biology and psychology being, almost in the same direction. Let us look at first EEG. This was a study, in the same patients where Dr. Gangadhar did their Art of Living study. And after that, the P300 cognitive event-related potential, actually, they were able to show improvement in this event-related potential, which is known to be decreased in patients with depression. Now, this is a recent study which we did, where we were able to show that yoga not only reduced depression, but it also reduced serum cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And these two effects were very much correlated. You can see a very nice graph. Now, not only cortisol going down, a marker of neuroplasticity, which we call as brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, this went in the opposite direction of cortisol, that it went up. Dr. Andrade, in his paper in 2010, has showed that this is, neuroplasticity is like a final common pathway for almost all antidepressant treatments, including ECT, which is the single most potent inducer of BDNF, antidepressant medication, and there is some recent evidence to show that even psychotherapy can have neuroplastic effects. So yoga also had these effects, and the cortisol went down and the BDNF went up in people who were depressed and got better with yoga. As I said, again, a very nice correlation between cortisol going down and BDNF going up. It almost seems that what yoga does is brings the brain back to homeostasis, where then it can manage itself. This is what we feel that yoga does. Now, let us look at it from another angle. This is a study by Chris Streeter, who was able to show through MRS that acute session, single session of yoga increases the concentration of GABA in the brain. We were doing MRS is very difficult and very expensive, so we chose to look at transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, to look at GABA in the brain. And this blue part here, what we call as the cortical silent period in the TMS. So when you give a pulse, there is the line becomes silent, and this is what we call as the EMG becomes silent, and we call this as a cortical silent period. It's an indicator of how good the inhibitory part of the brain is working. And this is as we all know, GABA is the main inhibitory neurotransmitter. So GABA is able to clamp down and the line becomes silent. This is something that we saw, that experienced yoga practitioners had a significantly longer cortical silent period than non-practitioners. And we did this prospectively as well, before and after. We run a course in NIMHANS, which we call as the Yoga Appreciation Course. And we did it before and after, a month of yoga. And we were able to actually show that the CSP went up, which means that the inhibitory potential of the brain was better. This is an illustration in a single subject. As you can see, the CSP almost doubled from 53 to 106 milliseconds in the same person after 1 month of yoga. Now let us see what about in patients with depression. It is well known that depressed patients have lower CSP than healthy. This is not NIMHANS. This is another study from outside. This has been well shown. And we did a comparison of yoga and walking, and we were able to show that yoga was better than walking in terms of increasing CSP. So this is a summary slide which shows, as you can see from the left to the right, the left are depressed patients before walking, after walking, before yoga, after yoga, and the last is healthy, where the CSP should be. As you can see, the people who did yoga are in between the depressed and the healthy people, and they are going towards it. Of course, this particular one was only after a very few sessions of yoga. So maybe if these people continued yoga practice, they would come to the level of the healthy population. This is a very good demonstration of the power of yoga to increase GABA. In the end, let me come to neuroimaging. This is a very instructive study done by Professor Gangadhar's daughter when she was an MBBS student, Kalyani, who published this in the International Journal of Yoga. Very simple study where it was shown that people who chanted Om, as you all know, when you chant Om, that component, you have a sort of vibratory sensation around the ears. And this is like vagal nerve stimulation is what she was able to show, because when they were chanting Om, there was actually a deactivation of the limbic areas of the brain. So if a simple chanting for 10 to 15 seconds can do that, imagine what it can do if you're doing it every day. You gain more control over your brain. This is another interesting part, although it's a very small sample. We are trying to replicate this in NIMHANS in an ongoing study. But this was a thesis by Hari Prasad, whom I told you this was normal, healthy, elderly people who are not ill. But after 6 months of yoga, we were able to actually demonstrate a small increase in the size of the hippocampus. This is what I was talking about, neurogenesis. We're also trying to see whether this can be actually looked at in various disorders. Coming to the last part of my presentation, this is a very recent study that we did looking at default mode network connectivity in patients with chronic schizophrenia. We know that default mode network is affected in these people, and we were actually, we taught yoga to these patients, and we looked at, please look at the before and after yoga in the top part of the slide. As you can see, after yoga, there is an increase in coherence and there is a decrease in mind wandering, which is loss of control of the brain. So this is a very recent study that we have done, and of course it's still in progress. This is just a slide of a few patients. So to summarize the findings of yoga and mental health from NIMHANS, in depression, schizophrenia, elderly, alcohol, we have been able to show symptoms improvement. But what is the biological correlate? In depression, it seems to be decrease in the cortisol and increase in BDNF, neuroplasticity. In schizophrenia, we have been able to show that oxytocin goes up in patients who do yoga. There is increased mirror neuron activity, and as I just showed you, there is improved connectivity of brain networks. In the elderly, there seems to be an increase in the hippocampal gray matter volume. In alcohol dependence, we have been able to show that there's again decrease in cortisol and ACTH. In other psychiatric disorders, these neurobiological correlates have still to be investigated. So yoga, it has gone from just a research topic in the departments of neurophysiology and clinical psychology to collaborative work in the Department of Psychiatry with various institutions, Art of Living, SVYASA, MDNAV, New Delhi. And of course, in 2014, we established our own center for yoga called the NIMHANS Integrated Center for Yoga, which has in 2019 added Ayurveda component and has become a department of integrative medicine, the first such department in any institute of national importance in India. And of course, this is a summary. We have had, we have around, of course, this was before COVID, we had around 1,500 patients coming to the yoga center in a month. A lot of research work, IEC work, publications, and as I showed you, the NICE guidelines has recognized this work as high quality evidence. What we have been actually doing is trying to derive what we call as specific yoga modules for different disorders. We have, in collaboration, some of them with SVYASA, we are able to do it already for schizophrenia, depression, mild cognitive impairment, ADHD, somatoform disorders, OCD, substance use disorder, and Parkinson's. All these are published. We are now working on anxiety disorders, migraine, epilepsy, and low backache. Of course, all this is based on patients and clinical services. As I was saying, 1,200 to 1,500 patients a month used to visit the yoga center, and all this has come together as a department of integrative medicine. So to summarize and to give a take-home messages, I would say yoga is ultimately a process of training and strengthening of selected brain and body networks, which luckily for us are excellent trainees. And it has been now demonstrated beyond doubt that yoga has positive effects in several physical and psychiatric disorders. And it seems to work through several mechanisms, including neuroplasticity. I should acknowledge, of course, my mentors, Professor Gangadhar, Dr. Venkat, the IPS itself, both for giving us support and organizing these kind of meetings. The Mind-Body Medicine Task Force of the IPS, which I am a vice chairperson of, and of course my team at the NIMHANS Integrated Center for Yoga. And I would like to end by saying that in October this year, we are organizing a conference called as Yantra, which is Yoga and Neurosciences, Traditions and Research Approaches. This was actually supposed to be held as a physical conference in June, but as you all know, the COVID wiped so many things out, and we have now gone fully online. Anybody interested in yoga, I recommend that you attend this. We have organized in such a way that all of you can attend in the evening. It is from 4:30 to 8 p.m. on the evening on Friday and Saturday over 2 weekends, so that all of you can attend. You can go to the website yantra2020.com. Thank you very much. And I thank Mahesh, Vijay, Dr. Prasad Rao and Kishan for allowing me to speak here. Thank you for a patient listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shivaram. I think you said all very briefly. Everything in psychiatry was very well covered with evidence. I think no longer now we need to be kind of, as I said, what Lord Ramakrishna said, that now you are looking for something within us. I think you showed the evidence what is within us in yoga at least. And you clearly showed that there are some disorders which have evidence, and I'm very happy and I would say, I would congratulate you for the leadership in this particular branch. I think you are the leaders right now, and you continue. I wish you all the best to continue as leaders. And second, there are a lot of and second thing, there are a lot of issues which might come out, but how do we translate actually which yoga is better and all? Maybe there'll be a lot of questions coming. I would ask you to hold back. Now I would invite Kishan, my younger brother, colleague, who has really worked hard right from his. I know him when he just joined IMH. How many? More than 2.5 decades, 3 decades back. He always was a learner. He would follow. He started a very innovative psychotherapy group, and then both of us share our interest in yoga. Both of us share interest. In fact, both of us presented in the Spirituality International Congress at Jerusalem last year. 1 second, I'll just come back. And both of us presented on spirituality, yoga, and mental health. A 2-part symposium by me and Kishan in the standalone International Spirituality Congress. Kishan is currently the president of South Indian Psychiatric Society, South India. He has been the president of IPS Telangana branch, Andhra Pradesh branch, and then Telangana branch, if you may. And then he is a life fellow of APA. Very keen observer. Has I think about 35 years back, he has started record keeping in Karimnagar. And till now, every patient of his has a number. If you go to that number, you will have the record. So a lot of things to learn. And I see that his son is also going to be a psychiatrist. So that's going to be a real asset. He's currently also the professor and head of Department of Psychiatry. So with this introduction, I would request Kishan to deliver on the spirituality, yoga, and mental health.
Thank you, sir, for good words from your side. I think Dr. Prasad Rao is always a very elder brother to me, and with his good words, I'm feeling the presence of my guru, Dr. Raghuram Reddy and Dr. Gangadhar. I think I'm able to sense the presence of them through Dr. Prasad Rao. And thank you to my colleague Shivaram, the young Shivaram and Naren. They're doing wonderful job in NIMHANS. Really, my Prasad Rao, myself, we are outgoing batch. They are incoming batch. I think future of yoga and research, they are doing wonderful job in NIMHANS. I think they will take this message to the future generations. With all that hope. Thanks to Vijay, thanks to Mahesh for this. I'm going to direct it to my talk. Yoga. It's not working. Next slide. Yeah. So I'm having my own module in my clinic. I'm running since 5 years. since 5 years, I'm running a wellness clinic. I'm having a very big pool of bipolar disorders, very big pool of psychosis, and psychosis with only 1 milligram risperidone, half milligram risperidone. I go for wellness clinic. I will try to have a psychotherapy for that group with my own module of therapy. And in every module, I'm having two types, body training and mind training. For body training, I follow this yoga. I'm having my own module, that is the Prashanti module. I'll tell that the 3 tracks in that. So for standing asanas and exercise, upper limb, Surya Namaskara, face, Natarajasana, Rakta Chalana Kriya is there. So to improve the circulation to the body, and this, then after each track, Anubhava Yoga will come. I will explain later. Second track is supine asanas in supine position, the Uttana Padasana, lateral leg asana, Shalabhasana, supine bending, Dhanurasana, Shashankasana, Navasana, Ardha Chakrasana, Pavanamuktasana. Then Vakrasana, then Pranayama with Akara, Ukara, Makara. This is in second track. The 8th track, Anubhava Yoga will be there, I will tell you. Then third track. In third track, mainly Pranayama. Mudra Pranayama, Vibhaga Pranayama. So in that Chin Mudra, Chinmaya Mudra, Adi Mudra, Merudanda Mudra, and Mudra, Purna Mudra. With this, the Mudra Pranayama, then the Vibhaga Pranayama for the lower body, and Madhyama and Urdhva. So all 3 levels, 3 parts of lungs will be covered in this pranayama. Then Nauli Kriya, right rectus, left rectus, left latissimus and right diaphragm. Then Nadi Shodhana, that's Surya Nadi Shodhana, Chandra Nadi Shodhana. This is track 3. Track 4, this chakras. Most of these yoga schools not giving chakras. So I learned from my guru this all chakras, how to do for sadhana, to do sadhana about chakras. Mooladhara chakra, Swadhisthana chakra is the genital, and Manipura is the umbilical chakra. Then Anahata chakra, the heart chakra, Vishuddha chakra, throat, Agya chakra, Sahasra. These are all the chakras. Then after that, Mahatva Purna Mudra. Then you learn it close with the silence, Dainikacharya meditation to that to make him to come to the day. Then Trataka and closing yoga with static running to make motivate. After all these steps, Anubhava Yoga, most of my psychiatric patients, my experience, they will less attention in them. They cannot concentrate. So without mindfulness, yoga will not work. So that is why I'm started, after ending of one track, I'll make them I'll ask them to go to supine position, that is Shavasana, and experience all the track one by one. So they memorize it. Probably with this, have good effect and good results by Anubhava Yoga, what I call Anubhava Yoga after each track. And anybody can take this my module to apply, and it is open. I think my email and phone number with organizers. Anybody requests, I provide it. And NIMHANS is doing wonderful job to develop a generic module. If you go to Art of Living Ashrama, they will have their own module. You go to Ganapati Sajana, he's having his own module. Prasad is every module. So that is why they are developing wonderful modules for schizophrenia separately, bipolar separately. I think they are doing wonderful job too, because we have to develop a generic module. Unless you develop a generic module, probably future science may not accept. Then coming to asana, I don't want to go detail. Already Shivaram told so many points. Asana is not exercise, number one. Asana means existence. Existence without doing anything. These are important points before doing asana. The asana means a posture. There is no movement in asana. Movement is, the movement in the asana means for attaining that asana. And steadiness and comfortable posture is asana. So these points should be observed, and every asana will have a vinyasa, that is different steps. There is a specific swasakarma to that breathing pattern for that asana, and there is drishti and sthiti is specific for each asana that should be followed. Then he has to relax in that asana and he has to experience it with mindfulness. Otherwise, it will not work. So to get a result, these steps should be followed. Then everybody knows the Ashtanga Yoga. In that last 3 steps, dharana, putting any goal, it may be to body training or mind training or any even daily life, if you have any goal, have to put focus on an object, that is the dharana. Dhyana is continuous flow of thoughts or meditation towards that goal, that is dhyana. Somehow you are identifying with and you are getting result of it. These 3 steps are important. With these 3 steps, or with in mindfulness, these 3 steps will be there, then we will get the result. Then what are the benefits of yoga? Some research findings I want to again summarize here for sake of audience who are not psychiatrists. Psychological test performance improved in asanas, shortened latency and higher amplitude of evocative potentials. There's an increased volume of gray matter by MRI, lower level of cortisol, that is stress hormone, that is useful in stress, decreased oxidative stress in yoga. Increased quality of life is demonstrated in yoga. Then let me summarize total yoga before going to the mind, other aspects. Yoga therapy is associated with observable biological changes in patients and healthy controls also. Neurobiological changes are seen in the brain structure, function, neurochemical changes, neuroendocrine changes, they are also demonstrable in neuropsychological domains by scaling. Mirror neuron system is stimulated, and neuroplasticity is a result of it comes as a result of yoga. Preliminary evidence from the genetic studies also they suggest gene expression and potential epigenetic changes with yogasana. I want to explain the 3 modules before going to psychotherapy, which is my comprehensive psychotherapy, which is my own module. Research module 1, youngsters, mirror neurons. The mirror neuron concept came 18 to 20 years back by Italian scientists. When a person is mixing the food, they started recording in motor neuron. There is electrical changes in the motor neuron system, in the motor area, that is precentral gyrus. When patient is not mixing, when person is not mixing the food, just observing when son is mixing the food, there are 20% of neurons firing in the same motor, premotor area. So these are neurons are called mirror neurons. You are mirroring the behavior. So this is the mirror neurons of 3 types. There are sensory mirror neurons, there are motor mirror neurons, there are empathy mirror neurons also. That is what we call, B.S. Ramachandran calls Gandhi mirror neurons, because empathy. Unless you know, when father is having empathy on son, automatically the neurons, it may be massaged. The sensory neurons will be, there are changes in the sensory neurons, electrical potential changes in the sensor, that is post-central gyri. So mirror neurons, there are a lot of double-blind studies, sensory mirror neurons, motor neurons and empathy neurons, a lot of studies in the literature that everybody can go. These are all lot of impact in civilization and culture development. And India is supposed to be a highly civilized and having a lot of that I going to touch, because we are doing yasana since centuries, and probably that mirror neurons are helping us to understand the wisdom of India. So this is the mirror neurons explanation. Then second research module is phantom limb phenomenon by V.S. Ramachandran. He treated the phantom limb pain by putting $3 mirror in a case, in a historical case of 1 year pain, crippling pain in the left upper limb, suffered with 1 year. After that, he developed a phantom pain, a crippling and gripping pain. He treated with by putting a mirror between them, automatically asked the patient to clap for 3-4 weeks. Within 1 week, within 2 weeks, patient reported him, "Oh doctor, my phantom is, I'm getting my relief in my phantom." So there is a grasp, the grip, very painful, my phantom is slowly relieving. So after 3-4 weeks, slowly that fellow came to me with excitement, "Oh doctor, my phantom is disappeared. I'm telling all distortions of mind, maybe delusion or illusions or distortions or phantoms in the brain. We wrote a book of phantoms from that is available. Can have a look of what are phantoms in the brain. So these phantoms can be treatable by mind mirror or a real mirror. So that I want to talk latter part of my lecture. Next is this module is already Shivaram told that salience default mode network. How yoga improves these networks, and a proper way of interpretation will be improved by yoga. You see, everybody knows the salience network by anterior insula and anterior part of cingulate cortex, and central executive network by dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and posterior parietal cortex, which it touches the environment. We are more of spatial orientation, near to reality orientation thinking, executive thinking. Then default mode is central, that is ventromedial prefrontal cortex and posterior posterior uh, uh, cortex, or a posterior cingulate cortex, PCC. So this is a median. Most of them in the bathroom when we are shaving, a depressive fellow always ruminates, like default way of depressive rumination. So that is default mode network. The yoga will do how to shift from salience. It improves the salience, how to shift from a default mode network to the central executive network. Then patient will be more reality oriented. It may be depressive default thinking, it may be psycho default thinking, it may psychotic default thinking, it may be neurotic default thinking. That will be corrected, and the shifting will happen to the executive network, which is more reality oriented, more world reality oriented. So again, now I am coming to the spirituality concept. Before going to what is health, WHO, everybody knows this is a state of physical, mental, social, and well-being. So whether we are doing the physical, yoga helps in physical health, yoga helps in mental health, it also helps in social health. So it also helps in preventive aspects of physical and mental health. Then health, what is health meaning itself? Healing the thyself. So what is the self? Is it egoistic self, that is body, mind, social self, or true self? True self is something formless. You see, there's a form for the body, there's a form for the mind, there's a form for the social self. But for a awareness, for a consciousness, they not be formless. You are training the person to perceive the formless, that is being in every being, and that is the real self. So coming to doctor-patient relationship in India especially, Vaidya Narayana Hari you will see in India only. So you will not see this term in American and Western world. Why? Because Indian doctors having a lot of empathy levels in India. And that everybody knows empathy definition as if you are experiencing the emotions of the opposite person as if you are putting your feet into their shoe. Why Vaidya Narayana Hari concept came to India? We are also feel the patients with our empathy. You see the leading doctors like Prasad Rao or Chandrasekhar in Hyderabad. Why they are having a lot of empathy levels. That is, they are touching the soul of the patient, they are touching the heart of the patient. Probably there will be most of the leading doctors will have good empathy level. That empathy can be trainable. It is a trainable empathy. By birth, it may be there by family background, but it is also a trainable, and this is a very important subject should be an important subject in young doctors. Then coming to the empathy, the God concept. You see here Buddha, and you take Christ, you take Lord Krishna. They see the being in every being. That is the level. If a patient is enemy or a criminal, your way of seeing is same. You see here as an animal, maybe a very vegetarian animal or non-veg animal. That being is same. So there is a lot of harmony between if you see the persons, if it is a being, you can see how they evolved into the bodily being. That's probably higher wellness. Probably doctors who are having higher empathy is equal to God that is Vaidya Narayanari. That concept came to India, and it is everybody knows here. So coming to the well-being, what is well-being? In individual experience as well as contentment, satisfaction of the past, optimism for the future, happiness in the present. Ill-being, a state of lacking health, happiness and content. So our goal of health is how to make the person to the well-being, not only becoming healthy and normal, how to take the patient to the higher level of well-being. So all psychiatrists know biopsychosocial social model, that is the Engels model. Now we are moving to the biopsychosocial spiritual model, is the latest model floated by Texas School of Academy of Physicians, by incorporating the spiritual component, as there are a lot of evidence in the literature for the spirituality now. So here you can see the spirituality and biology is a bidirectional, not only this social component, psychological component, which will have a bidirectional value. So even if this pyramid, you can see the biological basis, but with spirituality, you can change the biology. That I will explain in the next slide, the Markandian phenomenon. How can we change the biology by a spiritual way of intervention? So let me have a spirituality definition before going to a spiritual aspect of component of therapy. So this is the present spiritual definition, an individual search for ultimate. This definition I have taken from George Washington University of Spirituality. Every year they are going to change, they are going on changing the spiritual, but is the most accepted definition is individual search for ultimate meaning of life through participation in religion, through belief in God, belief in family, naturalism, rationalism, humanism, and arts. God believer, spirituality, nothing to do with a non-believer and believer of the God. Even non-religious person, even communist can be a spiritual. Whether you are Loka Kalyana or Swakalyana is important, that is a spirituality. Not even non-believer of God also can be a spiritual being, and spirituality, he can evolve to a spiritual level. In my psychotherapy, that is, I floated my own way of comprehensive psychotherapy, the biopsychosocial spiritual approach. There is a prarabdha concept in India. Every individual born into unique biopsychosocial spiritual environment, that is relative prarabdha, that can be changed by abhyasa yoga or psychological way of practice. You can change by psychotherapy, you can change the prarabdha. And psychotherapy definition, it is to remove, to modify, or retard existing symptoms, mediating disturbed patterns of behavior, and to make them improve, promote positive personality growth also as a goal of psychotherapy. Here, if you see the world, people are different categories. There are this school of thought divided people into three categories. God-believing religious person, Hindus, Muslims, and Christians. Non-God believing religious persons, they are Buddhists and Jains, they don't believe the God, but still they are religious person. Non-religious, non-God believing persons, they are rationalists and communists. Every person will have their own worldview, every person will have a global view. But even if you see the communists, the world, they think about the world change, they think about the rights of the people who are exploited. Whether they are in Loka Kalyana or Swakalyana is important. The global view, that every therapist will have his own global view, every client will have his own global view. Changing the global view by therapists and changing the client's global view by a therapist is a goal of the psychotherapy. Then coming to illness wellness continuum, you can see this is the very severe illness, highly ill-being, is a higher well-being. You see Rabindranath Tagore, Ramana Maharshi, or Aurobindo, their higher wellness. So schizophrenic, full-blown mood disorders, manics, they're all very severely ill. So our goal of therapy may be pharmacological, we are making them to the near normal. But our therapy, non-pharmacological intervention, should start from beginning in your treatment. Everybody is stopping here, coming to normal. Should not do like that. We should have a formulation, psychotherapeutic formulation since beginning itself. You take to normalcy, then take to the wellness. That should be the goal of psychotherapy, especially biopsychosocial spiritual intervention. Coming to the Markandeyan phenomenon, everybody knows this, everybody understands how Markandeya changed his biology. Yes, no, according to his prarabdha, to survive up to 14 years, but he became a sadhana of Mrityunjaya mantra, and he changed it to immortality by sadhana. It is possible. Sadhana, sadhaka, sadhyam, siddhi, what our teachers tells, Siddha Purusha. So if you practice it in a systematic way with the Guru guidance, you can defeat the neurobiology, you can defeat the Prarabdha, probably you can go to higher wellness. That's why you have to go to Guru. Here Guru is doctor language, lyrical meaning itself. Doctor means a teacher. So we are forgetting that we are the teachers and we are not doing proper psychotherapy. Do give us good pharmacotherapy. Always be like a teacher in counseling and guidance therapy. And this is, everybody should remember. Here, Muni, Maunam, Mauni, Muni. To practice Maunam, you know what is the stillness, how can you see your mind. The Rishi is, right way of seeing is the Rishi. Whole our Sanskriti came from the Munis and Rishis. And they told that the temple concept, your body is your temple, your spinal cord is Dvajastambha, your heart is the Garbhagudi, your white matter is the Pala Samudra. We are changing the white matter. We are changing the connectivity of the brain by yoga. And gray matter is the good and bad, the cortical, bad thinking, good thinking, the thought level. Reticular activating system is the center of consciousness and awareness. And we are sitting in Prakriti to correct the Vikruti by this sadhana. Already there is a module in it. Here I am floating, I am touching the stress and wisdom. Yoga and stress. Yoga decreases the stress, where the stress will, everybody knows biology, how stress will decrease the neuroamines, how stress will decrease the correct our neurobiology. Automatically, when stress is decreased, stress will not cause the biological prone persons to get a full-blown illness. It may be physical, it may be psychological. So that is why the yoga decreases stress. Yoga repairs hardware, that is body hardware and brain hardware. And mantra is a software where you are, I will use as a psychotherapy module. Then here everybody knows this, how the stress biology, how it distorts. What are the different stressors? Death of spouse, divorce, so many, everything is a stress. So this will improve, this will change the maybe symbolic and real stresses, it change the all amines. Then you can change the neuroendocrine system. Then here, this slide, emotion, if more emotional, more neurotic, amygdala will volume is improved, swollen, and volume is more, automatically the cognition will be decreased, decreased volume of hippocampus. The stress, that is why in India, ashrama siddhanta, no shrama. You go to any ashram, they will give free food, free accommodation. So stress will be automatically, your illness will be postponed. I am skipping some slides. Stress will, if stress becomes a distress, it causes the disease in the body. This is a disorder of the brain. Gastrointestinal system, you see irritable bowel syndrome, cardiovascular, IHD, hypertension, syncope, so many. Respiratory system, hyperventilation, asthma, all these are psychosomatic diseases. Even skin is a dermatitis, so many disorders. Then stress, now what I stress now, stress will have impact on the body. If it is becoming distress level, it will, body get diseases, mind will get diseases. Yoga, by decreasing the stress and protecting it. Then yoga and wisdom. Yoga, you see the Greek goddess of wisdom. There's a lot of research by Dilip Jeste, past president of American Psychiatric Association. A lot of tons of literature available with him. How wisdom improved, what is the definition of what is wisdom, what is the neurobiology of wisdom, how it helps. So Greek goddess is Sophia, Indian goddess of wisdom is a Saraswati. I think most of the females, goddess of wisdom is females, not males. Probably estrogen and progesterone are more nurturing hormones, neurological friendly. Estrogen and progesterone will help in the neuronal damage, therapy in the neuronal damage, and it helps create, it nurtures the brain and body. Then what are the components of wisdom? They are taken Bible. They taken that is Indian Bible is a Gita. The quote, they crystallize all what are the components of wisdom: general knowledge of life, emotional regulation, compassion, sacrifice, insight and humbleness, humility, decisiveness, duty-mindedness, work-mindedness, self-contentedness, trupti, love towards God or nature, renunciation. These are all the components of the wisdom. They crystallize. They have done wonderful studies by applying this and with the experiments on humans, experiments on rats. So he utilized this juggling exercises, how this induces the gray matter, then utilize the experiments in the rats by giving a more exercise to them, and it will improve the neurogenesis. And they came to a conclusion, the group came to a conclusion of wisdom, neurobiological areas of wisdom: anterior cingulate cortex, that is conflict detection; ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the emotional prosocial thinking; amygdala, strong emotions such as fear; dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, whole cognition and utilization. These are the areas of neurobiology they identified. Then you see this graph, by age, wisdom will not decrease, but memory will decrease. Memory will decrease, but crystallized pragmatics will not improve. That's why in India, Pedda Manushala concept, the wise people, most elderly is resource in India. We respect more elders. That is a resource in India. Western concept is different. So they are the pools of the wisdom, and I think that is why we respect the teachers which are aged. And here they have given three examples: successfully young, mostly unilateral usage and bilateral usage. Most of the persons who are successful young, they may use only one side, and even unsuccessful old, only one side. Successfully aged, bilateral usage is they found this, and they are more wise. Then Guru Chela relationship, Hanuman complex, everybody knows. Everybody in a client, there is a innocent inability is there. As a therapist, we should ignite it. And coming to my modules very fastly, very few slides are there. Gayatri mantra is I utilize this mantra as a module for the psychotherapy for psychotic disorders. One thing is real in Gayatri mantra, in Indian culture, Trikala Sandhya is with Gayatri, everybody will do as a routine. So in that, the god is Dikshakti in Surya Mandala. That means in all sides, east, west, north, south, up and down, and angle, 10, there is a power. No, Earth is holding my body, and sun is holding the whole Navagrahas. Who is holding the sun? Space is holding the sun. There is a power in the space, whether space is powerful than the sun. So space is holding the contents of the space, that is sun, as well as the all other components. Is the whole Surya Mandala is our holder is the Chidambara, is space. So the space is decreased in the space will be improved by Trikala Sandhya, because we will give Argya to the three times: morning sun, afternoon sun, and evening sun, by praying the space, the Prakriti, Vikriti, Samskriti. Trikala Sandhya will attach the person to the Prakriti, and with the belief that the Brahman or Allah or Ishwar, the power who is holding whole Prakriti, whole universe, is you are praying that. And even Gayatri, even our languages, everybody knows that letters, all 24 letters of Gayatri are labials. If you chant it by japa, the frontal lobes will be stimulated. The executive brain, it improves the executive ability by Gayatri japa. I don't want to take 2 days workshop if you go on doing that, but there are key points in this. If we explain, first 1 week I will train the yoga module by body training, by yoga. After that I will give mind training. What is schizophrenia? What is reality distortions? What is self and non-self? what is ego boundaries, how to correct, how Gayatri helps by phonetics explanation as well as the Sandhya. So I treated with Muslim patient, I treated with the Christian patient. In Muslim patient, Panchakala Prarthana. So there's no need to enter the religious one. Respect their religion, respect what the prayer they are doing, try to attach a therapeutic value to that prayer. Automatically, if they also they respect the space, Yoha, Ishwar, or Allah, whatever it may be, automatically space will be improved with this. Then I'm going to the Mrityunjaya mantra, second greatest mantra. Again, I am telling here, the first greatest mantra is feminine, that is Gayatri. Second greatest mantra in India is the Mrityunjaya. So you see in India, the female is the boss, male is the worker. We always go to the world to work and get something and giving to the wife to put in our almara, and the usually head of the family who stores this, our female is powerful than the male, according to the philosophically, spiritually, and neurobiologically what I believe. So that Mrityunjaya mantra, you see the two keywords, Yom Trayambakam Yajamaye Sugandhim Pushpa. Trayambakam is you have to see the world neither negative nor rightive, neither leftistic nor rightistic. You have to see a way of seeing, relative way of seeing about the dichotomy. That's a keyword. Second word, Urvaru Kamiva Bandhana. That means, like lotus, you stay in the mud of world but don't attach to it. Or you can see the ripened pumpkin, as creeper is attached with the ripened pumpkin. If you move it, it detaches. If you see negative thought, if you attach it, you go to depression. If you see the positive thought, if you attach more with it, you go to mania. If you relatively detach with the negative emotion, negative thought, if you relatively detach with the positive thought and positive emotion, if you relatively detach, you will escape from the bipolarity. So that is the main therapy, and phonetics also there. I don't want to go to phonetics in that, how the words, how the letters are powerful. The neurotic module is Matru Deva Bhava, Pitru Deva Bhava, Acharya Deva Bhava, Atithi Deva Bhava. So, Matru is again mind. Mind is symbolic of the feminine, and holding the space is symbolic of the masculine space. So Pitru Deva Bhava, all, if you respect the mother, if you accept the mother, maybe good or bad, if you accept the father, good or bad, irrespective of them, if you accept completely, if you forgive if they were really bad, if you accommodate, probably your neurosis will come down. Freud told that whole neurosis is because of the insecurity and anxiety. So if you don't accept the mother and father, third is Acharya Deva. There are negative Acharya and positive Acharya. No, Brihaspati, positive, Shukracharya. No, there are two schools of teachers. If you accept two schools, probably you will go above the school of thought. Then Atithi, good time and bad time. You accept both times, probably you will go complete. All females are mother-like, all males are father-like, all teachers are above the dichotomy, all schools of thought you respect, and you respect the all good time and bad time, probably there is no neurosis at all. Then the personal disorders. So, Ashtanga Yoga, I don't want to go here, but Satya Dharma Samanvaya. Next slide. Here, the mother goddess Adishakti, you see Shiva concept of Shiva, concept of Vishnu, concept of Brahma. Shiva is Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Satya is the reality distortions is there in psychosis, psychotic distortions, neurosis, neurotic distortion, mood disorder, attachment, these are mood distortions. So reality distortions is the main phantoms in the brain that should be corrected. The Satyam is, if a reality, that is power. You know, wife of the Shiva is power. That is Parvati is the power. If you are Satya, whatever there in your inside, you talk the same, you do the same. That is Satya. Now, who practice Satya Harichandra and Gandhi practice the Satya, they are powerful. The power comes and you are powerful. That is the wife of Shiva is the power. Then coming to Vishnu is a dharma. Your behavior, you do your duty, you will be prosperous. That is why wife of Vishnu is Lakshmi. You will become prosperous. Then you have to do duty properly, dharma and Satya. If you balance both Satya, Dharma, Samanvaya, probably the wisdom, that is Bhaumukha Prajna comes. Brahma is Bhaumukha, for that you need Saraswati, that is wisdom. So wife of the Brahma is the Saraswati. Probably with this personality, ideal personality will come. What is Satya? What is Dharma? How to correct the Satya? These are the points to be noted, which are already given by our Samskriti. So here, psychoanalysis by Western school is a mothering technique to get all, say, mind, and fathering technique to correct the distortions. And in India, we floated that is psychoanalysis. This is self-analysis. Our Munish and Rishis tell that how to see Vipassana, Buddha, whatever the dhyana. You are observing sitting under the tree. You are seeing your own mind. You are, by Karuna, you are observing your own mind, getting all the material data, that is your own internal prakriti, you are getting back, you are refreshing, you are relooking, you are re-seeing and reintegrating to your mind. That is the therapy happening. Here, Prakriti, Vikriti, Samskriti. Prakriti is natural, Vikriti is unnatural, that is your psychopathology and body pathology. By Samskriti, whatever the Gayatri Mantra, Mrityunjaya Mantra, all these came from as a software from our Samskriti. We are taking help of the Samskriti to decrease the Vikruti to make them to the near Prakriti, that is natural. So, somebody, Naren from Nimhans, used to wonder, to develop a research model, we are not having a module, Indian model of mind. This is the Indian model of mind, what I have floated. Running mind is Id, listening mind is Arjuna, telling mind is Krishna, and the Hanuman is simply sitting and observing mind. This is the Indian mind module given 5,000 centuries ago. Again, this is Vishnu temple. The Vishnu is a symbolic of self, sleeping comfortably on the snake, that is Nagu is Nagu means Na plus Agu means non-stoppable. Mind is always non-stoppable. If you control the mind, you can sleep comfortable on the bed. You can utilize the umbrella as a you can utilize snake mind as umbrella. This is a symbolic presentation of our mythology, and for that you have to observe like Garuda. Garuda way of seeing, like eagle way of seeing, the snake will become statue. So this is again the barbarians way of seeing. I told one way of vision is Hanuman vision, Hanuman way of seeing. One more seeing is Barbarika way of seeing. Barbarika, he observed whole Mahabharata with only head, without body. If you are nobody, if you are a declassified person, your judgment is the top, higher wellness judgment. That's why here you can see the Vyasa Maharshi and Panchapandavas and Krishna with folding hands. Oh, Barbarik Maharshi, give the ultimate judgment. He has given judgment. Please go to the literature and see that. Ultimate judgment, the toppest judgment can be given with the nobodiness. That is a barbaric way of seeing. In the psychotherapy, you can see the distorted self. This is the distorted. This can be corrected by re-seeing, relooking and reintegrating. You can become childlike way of seeing. Everybody know of role of pruning in psychiatry. Child, every part of the brain will be connected with another part, but slowly by grown up, by classification, male, female, good and bad, then caste, religion, language, nationality, we classified ourselves, we pruned our brain, the classified, and our judgments and phantoms are larger in our brain. So yoga is nothing but you are repruning, reversal pruning. Probably you will become again childlike, much more wellness. That is why Ramakrishna Paramahansa is like a child, and Aurobindo is like, Ramana Maharshi is like child. That is the highest wellness. This is the last slide, Ardhanarishwari Tattva. Here in yoga, Surya Nadi is the right, and the crossing, go to the left lobe. Left lobe is language, that is feminine lobe, is the dominant lobe. As usual, the dominant in the, who is dominant in our family is female. What I believe is that she is a boss, male is a worker. And the right lobe is the masculine lobe, that is whatever the abstraction and bhava, all abstract thinking, mathematical, is all right lobe. Left lobe, language skills and mind formation, thoughts, everything. Even Broca's area is in left lobe. So that is a Surya Nadi, and Chandra Nadi. Left hand we call it Chandra Nadi, and it crosses right lobe is the masculine. Chandra Molishwara is a masculine brain. Automatically spatial orientation is right parietal, where improvement of our spatial orientation, a right way of orientation of self and non-self will happen, and he accommodates the whole Prakriti. That is why he became the Yogishwara. Here, the last slide is ideal personality. The Indian mythology. This was a reference is the Chitralekha drawn this picture by living in the Shiva's family with Usha. She's a friend of Usha, daughter of Shiva. She pictured whole Shiva families after experiencing it. So according to her, Shiva is a symbolic of the self, Parvati is the symbolic of mind, Vinayak is the symbolic of the parasympathetic or Chandranadi, and Murugan is the symbolic of the sympathetic. Vehicle of the Murugan is a vehicle of the Murugan is a peacock. Always sees the snake to hit. Snake will see the vehicle of Vinayaka on to attack. Then vehicle of the Parvati, lion will always attacking the bull. So these are different. Bull is the vehicle of the Shiva. So lot of problems in Shiva family, but you see the Shiva is a Yogishwara, is with serene and complete calmness, and there's effortless Purnananda in his face. That is why I float this as a Shivaphrenia and a schizophrenia, broken mind. And Shivananda, Purnananda, Samanyaya, Satchita, these are Samakrita, ideal personality. Probably this is a slide. Thank you very much for organizing the webinar. Thanks to Srijay and Mahesh and Jagdish for giving up. Thank you very much. Over to Prasad Rao. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think two complex topics you mix so nicely. One is the yoga, second is the spirituality. Of course, you did focus on the integrity of integrating your own thoughts from whatever you learned from your, you can say, tradition, to use them for the psychotherapy in your day-to-day practice. Well, that's a very good attempt, and I also wish that some of this data, if you can present like Shivaram, it will be useful for the others, because yes, there are a lot of things which is said going well logically connected and emotionally connected too, but we need to translate it to therapy, and we thank you very much for your comprehensive. Now, without much ado, there are 5 important questions, and I did expect these questions right in the beginning. And the first question is for Shivaram. Priyanki Javalkar, Dr. Priyanki Javalkar wanted to know, my mind is restless. I can't concentrate even while doing yoga. Now, what do you suggest? Which kind of yoga asanas do you suggest to practice as a yoga therapy?
Of course, this is a common problem for most people, depending on the situation where they are in. The most important thing is not to try and focus on what is going wrong. That if you are always thinking that I am not able to concentrate, that problem is going to, it's, our mind works in that way that whatever you give attention to, whether it is negative or positive, attention is attention. So the idea is to let whatever happens be like a screen in your mind. That is what they call as mindfulness, that thoughts will come. Neither should you try to prevent the thoughts nor give attention to them. This is something that we learn. Most of us have to learn by practice. Please try don't attempt to stop the thoughts. Yes. If you feel, oh my God, so many thoughts are coming, this is bad, I'm getting restless, then that attention, you are putting your attention towards those thoughts. So you have to let the thoughts come and let the thoughts go, and be like an observer. That is something that if you practice, I'm sure you will be able to do it. But it's a very common problem when you start doing yoga or meditation. Most people have this problem in the initial face.
Another question from Kanakam Nedunuri also talks about, could you tell us on these two important issues, which asanas actually promote positive thinking? Do you have anything in mind in which asanas promote positive thinking? And side by side, do you also recommend when you do asanas, do you also tell that our lifestyle itself has to be changed?
It is not that we tell that the lifestyle should be changed. If you start doing yoga, it will automatically happen. It's not that everybody has to be told that you don't eat this, you don't do that, you don't do this. That happens when you start thinking in a particular way. You start taking care of your health better. Then you are able to better control your hunger. You are able to better control other things. It will naturally happen. But this asana, for example, as Dr. Kishan was saying, asana many people think of as a very complex movement. It is actually not the movement at all which is the asana. The final sthiti is the asana. To get to that asana, you may need to move, but the movement is not to be confused with the asana. Asana could be anything. Sukhasana, for example, you just sit with your legs crossed, is an asana.
Yes.
So if you are able to be comfortable in the asana, the Sthiram Sukham what Patanjali talks about, it might be very simple asana. It may be the most simple. Please don't try for perfection. Of course, if you go to Iyengar Yoga, they will say that you have to do this in a particular way. They would have done it for 20 years and therefore they're able to do it. You need not worry about that, especially if you're talking about patients. Please don't ask them to do perfect yoga. It will be very demotivating for them. The best one to do is start with a very simple asana and be able to be mindful and relaxed in that asana. A very person from Australia wrote to me that he has been following our yoga module for schizophrenia, and the patient has got better now. Now what to do? I have been doing this yoga for 6 months and patient actually has learned the yoga. Now what should I do further? I said, no, you don't need to teach any new yogasanas. You just need to teach him or her to do the same thing in a more relaxed way. That is the way forward in yoga. Do the same thing, do it better. And please always compare only with yourself. Do not compare with other people. That person is able to bend her back so well, I cannot do it. That is not the way that yoga. Am I better today than I am yesterday? That's all you need to look at. So take the most comfortable asana, do it well, that's good enough.
Naresh Vadlamani wanted a much more specific answer on, in your studies, did you use any specific asanas? Of course, you did elaborate on some of the things in the early stage, in the healthy volunteers and all. He wanted to know, especially for depression, schizophrenia, and other disorders, are you choose to pick up a asana to be helpful for group of patients, especially negative symptoms in schizophrenia, etc.
As Dr. Kishan showed, some specific asanas, of course, do have a definite impact. For example, the inverted asanas are supposed to be very good for aging. Of course, the simple reason is, of course, they increase blood flow to the brain and they improve your balance. But what we have done actually is that we have gone through like Dr. Kishan talked about the Gita. In the yoga text, there are some things like Vishada. Vishada is something like depression. And they have recommended what are the practices there. Of course, they will not say you use this for depression. No, they would have put it in a different context. So what we have done is we have put together a group of yogasanas. The module is very similar. Everything starts with, say, Sukshma Vyayama, which is warm up. And then there is a set of simple asanas followed by pranayama, and then ending with some kind of a meditative practice. The components of each will be different. Say in depression, we have many of the chest opening asanas, the fast breathing, which is like Kapalbhati and Bhastrika, more dynamic practices. Because people with depression need to become little more active, be more dynamic. And Kapalbhati, in fact, the pranayama is the most important part for depression, not so much the asanas. Whereas in schizophrenia, we would like them to do asanas We would not like them to do too much longer meditation, because it is known that meditation can worsen psychosis, especially if the patient is symptomatic. We would like them to do Surya Namaskar, we would like them to do asanas. The meditation part is usually kept to a brief Om chanting or Nadhanusandana or one of those things. So most of the modules will have around 30 to 40% similarity, with differences in the asanas and the pranayama. For example, in the anxiety module, there will be much more relaxation, or much more almost like a JPMR, what we call as the deep relaxation technique or the quick relaxation technique. This terminology is used by the Asvyasa, but essentially it is something like the JPMR, where you do relaxation. So each of these is different. So our modules are available to whoever wants. If you write to me or write to the Yoga Center at Nimans, we can send you the modules. Of course, we do recommend that you tell the patient to learn it from a qualified yoga instructor, simply because you don't want to get, a complaint that I got backache, I got something else, my back sprained, and now I have spondylosis because of doing it wrongly. Once they have learned, of course, they can self-practice. That is what I would recommend.
Dr. Prabhakaran wanted to know, you as a researcher who's involved in yoga, is there a possibility that yoga itself is an anti-aging, has an anti-aging quality? I mean, it prolongs the, there are a lot of stories which we heard, yogas and all to survive. And I think probably, I also wanted to know this. Like, I know about some of the research experiments in IBRO, done in Nimans during my time. At that time, the IBRO did bring out the first few data, and then you were actually concretized in psychiatric illness. So is it anti-aging?
I'm sure Dr. Kishan will also agree. It is definitely anti-aging, no doubt about it. Now, the only question is how it happens. For example, like I said, Sri B.K. Iyengar lived till 93 or 94, and he was doing yoga almost till his last days. And at 8, he was told that he would die by the time he was a young man, because he had asthma. He was a very sickly child. And he, of course, attributed his longevity to yoga. But one of the mechanisms that we know is that what is called as the telomeres. The telomeres are the parts of the end of the chromosome, which are like, we twist the bread packet. They are twisted like that, and they keep the integrity of the chromosome. Now, it has been shown that even a single session of meditation or yoga actually changes the way that this telomerase. Now, the telomerase is the enzyme which catalyzes, this telomeres, and telomere length has actually been shown to increase after the practice of yoga. So that is one of the, it is at molecular level, at the cell level. It is, okay, will it not happen with other things? For example, in the Greek islands, there is an island called Ikaria, where people live to 100. In Okinawa, in Japan, there are people, one of the longest lived islands in the world, simply because their lifestyle itself is like yoga.
One point, Shivaram.
Yes.
Yoga is, living for 100 years is not. Is it a meaningful living? Whether living wisely or unwisely, otherwise. That is also important. It will improve wisely and longevity also.
That's what I said. The Japanese, there is a very interesting book called Ikigai. If people want to read, that book called Ikigai is very interesting. It compares all these so-called long-lived areas. And what they have found is that the most important thing is the people derive pleasure from very simple things. They are not very rich. They are not extremely technology-driven, but they derive pleasure from simple things like meeting friends, talking to good people, enjoying with your family. That's all that they do. And of course, they have a little difference in diet. They don't eat very much in the night. What I talked about, intermittent fasting, for example, is now a very big research topic in the West. Simply giving 12 to 14 hours of break to your digestive system, as recommended by, in Ayurveda, they say, Anna Kalam Dve, which means eating should be only twice a day.
Yes.
So, how this twice a day, you can, in Singapore, the way they practice intermittent fasting is that they don't have breakfast. they have directly lunch at 11:30 because their lunch time is 11:30. For us, that is difficult. Our lunch time is usually 1 or 2. So for us, it is better that we take our breakfast and then we take our lunch. And if you want some fruits or something in the evening, but in the night we should fast. That is the Indian better way. And of course, our ancestors did this. They did not eat after 6 o'clock. We, of course, we eat pizza at 10 o'clock in the night. That, that is what is gone wrong. So yoga, as Dr. Kishan said, if you start doing yoga, you will start thinking about all these things. And then you automatically say, okay, I should not overload my stomach in the night, and your diet will come down.
There was a very interesting question in the end, because a lot of compliments to both of the speakers presenting very nascent. I myself would like to ask Kishan one question, because you did present a great perspective or panorama of Hinduism in terms of rituals and all these things. But don't you think each religion and rituals are itself a spirituality, one? And for example, I have been always, if I remember correctly, from 10th year of my age, I was always been ritualistic behavior. Even now, I practice Ekadasis for the last 20 years. I eat only once. That kind of a ritualistic behavior, does it also come under spiritualism practice? Both of you can answer, of course.
Yeah, spirituality, ritual part will be there in the spirituality. But you have to go above the ladder. Ritual things are lower level. So it will help you to go up to the ladder. So it may be Islamic prayer, maybe Christian. First you are putting something on the goal, then whether you are evolving to the higher level, as a meaningful life, or wise level, or Loka Kalyana level. Whether we are evolving at the level of I only, or we, are unison with the universal, Loka Kalyana, something different. That is important. Certainly, rituality is a part of religion, and we don't want to talk anything about religion. All religions are good. Because of religions, world still is a civilized way. If you remove this religion, fear of God, there is no police station will control this crime. Because of fear of God, fear of religion, all these things, probably we are civilized, little civilized. Of course, the side effects also there, but we are not allowing the persons go to the higher evolution. But it should not be stagnation, but it is an evolution. It should not allow us to involution. For example, Madi Achara should not lead to untouchability. So it should be relatively to understand the ritual importance as well as the advantage and disadvantage also. So teachers should guide properly. So that particular teachers also know past teachers, present teachers. The present teacher's role is how to calibrate the old philosophy to the present needs. That is important. What rituals are important? It's the even advancement of science. You have to calibrate with the science and art. They calibrate with the available latest evidence to the old concepts. So there should be balance. The teacher should balance the past knowledge to the present needs. Even rituality also should be updated. So in Islam also there are a lot of gurus changes. There is a difference between one guru and other guru. In Hindu also there is a lot of gurus changes from that. That should be encouraged. And whatever the good for the society to that time is important. Thank you. Over to Shivaram.
Thank you. Shivaram, your closing comments. First of all, I would like to congratulate both of you for two important things. Well, you definitely brought the science of the faith, science of very ancient one, as I started with the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's observation. The second important thing is, I wish both of you continue your persuasion and pursue the research. And Shivaram, as a mentor, professor and head of integrative medicine, would guide through. I was surprised to hear from you. It is literally thousands of people who are coming till the COVID was there. So I wish your department will have so many kind of an activity, both for actually your positive mental health and education. So with this, I would hand over to Mahesh and of course my dear friend Vijay. Thank you both of you for again and again calling me. I personally learned a lot of things, few things, and I'm sure we are going to learn much more from Tele Arogya.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your audience and chair the session. It's an honor for us. Thank you. And
Thank you, Dr. Kishan. Thank you,
Raghuram
Dr.
Reddy,
Shivaram.
the audience. I want to express my thanks to Reddy, Dr. P. Raghuram Reddy. He's in the audience. Thank you very much, sir, for your blessings. Thank you. Over to Mahesh.
Thank you, Dr. Kishan. Thank you, Dr. Shivaram. I think it was a very wonderful
1 minute,
program.
Mahesh. I should first
yes,
salute
sir.
our Guru Garu, Raghuram Reddy Garu, for, as usual, he is the most youngest learner in this group.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad Rao, for moderating this session wonderfully well. We've had more than 90 people on Zoom at one point of time when we had the maximum viewers. We have around 30 plus on YouTube. So it was a wonderful program, well articulated by both the panelists and the moderator here. I think we've overshot the time. So we would like to thank all the audience, the delegates who actually attended this program, kept the interest going till the very end, sir. And looking forward to see you all in the next webinar series. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Good night. Thank you, Vijay, for coordination, and thank you, Linux, for the platform.
And somebody wanted whether you can give the recording of this, so you can send it to everyone who has participated.
So I put the link, sir. The link will be there.
So thanks to Linux also, Linux people, and Roop Kumar and Ramya for helping me to join all of you in the last moment as well.
Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
you, sir.
And Mahesh, for continuation of Telearogya. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mahesh. Thanks, Vijay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good night. See you all again. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.